Hey everyone. Thanks for clicking on this episode of Surprisingly, where I continue the very serious shenanigans of sitting down with a stranger and talking about what the heck ever. I'm your lactose intolerant host, Bridget Deanahan, and today I'm sitting with Jason, known to everyone as Hollis, who is a local producer, music venue owner, and extremely snappy dresser. If you want to know how snappy, just know our IT guy came into the studio after he left and asked who he was because the guy just looks like he's famous. According to Jason, looking cool is intentional. If you want to check out his visual vibe, lock it here for a listen now, then search for this episode on YouTube at surprisingly_pod. Heads up, we just heard in 2025 people have no attention span for long-form content. You don't say. So we're going to start experimenting with splitting some episodes. This is Jason's part 1, and we get right into it. Well, Jason, Mr. Hollis.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
It's a delight that you're here, and you're looking so good.
It's my pleasure.
The camera can't see this, but I do want our listening audience to know that you have a rainbow belt on with a double scorpion belt buckle that maybe is the finest belt buckle I've ever seen in my whole entire life.
Well, it's not rainbow. It's gold stingray, which is iridescent.
It is iridescent.
I don't want anybody getting the wrong impression. Think I have a rainbow belt on.
You are a straight man. You're married to a woman.
Yes.
All this fashion in one human frame is a lot, and I'm really appreciative.
Thank you. Well, likewise.
Oh, thank you.
I almost wore the same outfit as you, so I'm glad that
I could have easily shown up in what you're wearing too. Tell me about the glasses. Are you always a sunglasses guy?
Yeah, it's kind of my thing. I'm a sunglass collector.
Okay.
I don't even know how many pairs of sunglasses I have. I think I'm on a little bit of a kick right now where I'm probably buying a pair a week.
Little obsessive.
A little obsessive. But yeah, I wear them. I wear them 24/7 pretty much. I don't sleep in them, but I'm always in sunglasses. And there's something, I don't know, there's probably psychologically there's something behind it. Mm-hmm. I meet so many people every day that, I don't know, I just feel more comfortable in sunglasses.
Is it a social shield of sorts for you?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So based on...
It's definitely a cape. I mean, it looks cool. I don't know. When I was growing up, all of my heroes were in the music business, and every photo or book that I read, they always had sunglasses on.
Okay.
And I always thought that was the coolest thing. I mean, one of my biggest heroes, Andrew Loog Oldham, who discovered the Rolling Stones and managed them and produced them for a while. Every early photo I ever saw, he was in cool sunglasses, and I just kind of took on that role, I guess.
How old were you when you started wearing shades?
I mean, I've always worn them. I mean,
when you were a kid.
I'm a Gen Xer, so we were always in Ray-Bans and Swatch watches and all that fun stuff, but. It wasn't really until I think that I started kind of finding my identity in the music business, and I really wanted to model myself off of the people that inspired me. Rick Rubin, he was always in sunglasses, and there was just something about it. There was a mystique. There was a cool factor to that, and for me, when I really started coming into my own in music, you're always kind of looking for what's your thing. Nice jackets, sunglasses, cool hair. It's kind of a rock and roll thing.
Well, so I don't know anything about you. The premise of this podcast is two strangers sitting down and
awesome.
and talking about whatever comes up. So I don't know anything about you, and you've mentioned music. Are you in the biz, adjacent to the biz? Are you a musician?
I've been in the music business for 30 years.
Okay.
So it's interesting. I started at a music store in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, when I was 15. And my mom was dating the owner of the store. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world because I was already into music. I mean, it's even, I think, backdated even further. I really got into music around the age of 5.
Tell me what kind of music was happening in your home, if at all.
Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, the Kinks, the Beatles.
And this was your mother's music?
It was my dad's record collection that I really kind of got into. And I think what bridged the gap for me was Saturday morning cartoons. And, every kid, especially from my generation, that's what you did on Saturdays. You watched cartoons until 10 o'clock in the morning, and then you were off out in the neighborhood playing until the lights came on.
Right.
The street lights came on. But I think the biggest kind of like light bulb going off for me was Saturday morning cartoons, because every cartoon from Scooby-Doo to Jabberjaws, Fraggle Rock, they all had
I loved Fraggle Rock.
They all had a band, and there was music around it. But it was the Muppet Show that really kind of did it for me, because I thought like Dr. Teeth and the Electric Mayhem were like the coolest band. And as a kid, and Animal on the drums, Zoot, Janice, Dr. Teeth, with the gold tooth. It was just mental. And they always had brilliant guests on, Elton John, Liza Minnelli, like all these great guests. And for me, it was just like there was nothing else. It was like the Muppet Show and records. And all I did was just kind of think about music. And then when I was in high school, really middle school, I got into playing the drums, playing the guitar.
Were you self-taught?
For the most part, yeah. So I'm highly dyslexic.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's a bad thing.
No.
I think there's a lot of highly creative people that have dyslexia.
When did you learn that you were dyslexic?
It was fourth grade. So my earliest memories were just kind of like watching mouths. I can read lips really well. It was really kind of focusing in on teachers and watching their mouth and just kind of like remembering everything that they were saying. So then when you were tested on things, I could easily go back and recall. It was in fourth grade when you started taking like written tests and you had to do math problems and things. So for example, for me, if there's like 4 digits, 3387, I would read it as 8733. So for me, it was like taking tests. I was just failing every test. And it was getting to the point where like I got held back in fourth grade. I had to go into like a tutoring program over the summer. My mom was a teacher. She was an educator for 50 years. So she put me in like a program, just trying to, analyze what's going on. And they kind of figured out that, he's dyslexic and can't read. It's like, can't read. He can remember everything, but can't read. So I had to go in and I really had to learn how to read. And for me, the way my brain works with dyslexia is I start at the end of a page, at the bottom of the page, and I go in reverse, and I read up to the top of the page, and then I read back forward.
You do this to this day?
Yeah. And my brain can process it then. by looking at it's weird. I don't understand it.
It's
but
twice the work.
That's how it works. Yeah, that's why if I have to read something, it takes me a minute. That's why I hate those fucking captions on the screen when you're watching something in different languages. And I keep telling my wife, I'm like, you have to read this to me. It's just going too fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was around that time. I don't know how old I was, but it was like around 4th grade. And
So 9-ish.
but the interesting thing though is like I read the books that I read, quantum physics and different things that I'm interested in. And once I read it, it's like it's locked in. I can repeat it. I know about it. So now if I have to read anything, it's got to be something I'm like incredibly interested in.
Do you do audiobooks as well?
No.
Oh, interesting. So you prefer to read it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I listen to a lot of things. Audiobooks is not one of them because usually it's the narrator that drives me crazy.
Sure.
It's just like they're just reading a book. I don't know.
I think the best ones are the author-read books, I think, are a little better, but me too, and my husband as well. We're readers. I don't often listen to a book. We have a couple times in the car, but... Need fresh content like social and web assets, copywriting, and more? Visit freshconsumables.com. Earlier, you were saying, we were talking about when you learned to play music, and then you touched on your living with dyslexia. So how did that come into play when it was time to kind of learn instruments? And my question that I asked you was, were you mostly self-taught? How did that come to fruition for you?
So I took lessons, but again, it came down to reading, and it came down to like looking at a chart, trying to read a chart, and my brain just flips it. So when you're having to go through and play something, looking at a chart, it's
a nightmare,
almost impossible for me. So everything I've ever done, it's just been, you pick it up, you start figuring it out.
By sound, then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What instruments do you play?
I started off playing drums, picked up guitar, a little piano. I can dabble in just about anything, really. But I was never like super great, So for me, like with my journey, it was like in middle school, I started playing in bands and neighborhood bands. It was the coolest thing about the 80s, because everybody was into rock and roll, and you could walk out of your house and listen, and there was a garage band practicing somewhere.
Sure.
So we had probably like 4 or 5 garage bands in my neighborhood growing up, and we'd inevitably always end up at the best band's garage. All the bands would end up there, hanging out with them, kind of watching them rehearse. And it was awesome. It was awesome times, But that kind of led me into going to work at Ziegler Music, where it was like an instrument store, guitars, drums, things like that. So I started off there, basically cleaning band instruments in the summer
Was
times.
this your mom's boyfriend's place? Okay.
Yeah, which again, I thought that was probably the coolest thing ever, that she's, was dating the guy that had the coolest music store in town.
Sure.
All the bands hung out there.
Where was this? Where'd you grow up?
Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Okay, you said that earlier.
Yeah.
That's right.
And so I started off cleaning band instruments and in the summer, and then on the weekends they would let me go into the music store and kind of work on the floor. Well, by the end of the summer, like at 15, I was like one of the top salesmen, and I was only there on Fridays and Saturdays. And my pops now, Fred Ziegler, who owned the store, he was like, well, you got to, next year we'll have you on the floor more. And so I started working as a sales guy there, selling guitars and drums and things like that. And I got to know all the bands around town. And it was really cool, because at that time in the music store, we had great teachers there, like guitar, bass, drums.
Sure.
Randy Jackson taught bass guitar there.
Oh, wow.
Randy from American Idol.
Yeah.
And then his brother taught drums, Herman Jackson. Randy ended up off to LA, and I think he got the Journey gig or something.
Mm-hmm.
And he left, but Herman was there, and Herman played with everybody. You're talking like Chuck Berry, Ray Charles, Alan Toussaint, everybody that came through town, Herman was their drummer. And so Herman started taking me around to all these gigs.
Lucky you.
So, at one point I got to meet Professor Longhair, Dr. John, Alan Toussaint. I got to carry Chuck Berry's guitar to stage. There's just so many like cool opportunities that I got to be involved with.
See how many dudes were wearing sunglasses and how cool they looked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting thing about Chuck Berry was, I don't know if you know the stories of Chuck, but they're wild.
No, tell me some.
So one of his things was he had to be paid in cash, and it was $10,000 in a briefcase before he walked on stage, and then $10,000 when he walked off stage in another briefcase. Then he had a very special amp where there was like 6 of in the world that Fender made, and you either had to rent his amp for $10,000 or find him the exact amp.
Okay.
He was always in a Lincoln Town car, and he always had like some beautiful blonde with him. So
I love obsessive people.
Yeah.
Eccentric characters make the world go round.
Chuck was awesome.
Weirdos. I love it.
So he would get paid, and he'd take his guitar out, strap up, and then he'd be like, "All right, it's time." And he would take his wristwatch and he would flip it, to the
inside of the
inside
wrist.
of his wrist, and you have an hour. And he'd go on stage, and he looked at his watch, and he would duck walk off the stage at an hour, and boom, another $10,000 cash, and then Chuck's gone.
He knew his time was valuable.
Yeah, like a lot of those early musicians got just screwed.
Yeah, they did.
So badly.
They did.
And I think, I think it happens to everybody in the music business, myself included. And it's just those things where you start to learn the lesson, and you start to navigate how you're not going to ever have to relearn that lesson again.
Sure.
Chuck was definitely one of them. But Herman would take me to these things. I got to walk with Ray Charles to the stage of Jazz Fest one year. So I was kind of inundated with these great musicians.
Amazing.
And I was good, but I was never great. At one, I was probably really good at the drums, but it got to the point where in my high school years, I was dealing with all the bands, the touring bands, the local bands. I just kind of knew everybody.
Were you sort of at this time, are you thinking in terms of a career and what you want to do with your life and how you're going to get in and fit in?
Yeah, I think I made that decision at like around 7.
Yeah.
I think I made the decision of I'm going to be in music. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anybody in it, but this is what I'm going to do.
It's so funny, Jason. You're our 6th guest on this podcast. And of course, we're in Nashville. The number of music adjacent people that have sat with us so far is the quotient is high because we're in Nashville.
Yeah.
So continue. So what were you thinking when you were in high school? Were you like, I want to do X, Y, and Z, or were you like, I'm going to let the chips fall where they may?
I think when you're young and you have a passion or that burning desire, I have to do this.
Yeah.
And nobody around you knows how to do that. You just have to kind of figure it out. And for me, in high school, like knowing all the bands and dealing with everything, like the touring bands that I was dealing with, I just put together an A&R department at our music store. And so then I was dealing with all the bands. And I knew at some point that I knew how to organize. Mm-hmm. I knew how to have events. I knew how to kind of manage, and I knew how to produce. I was kind of already making demos with bands and things like that in high school.
Why? Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So I think for me, it was like, what's the next step? Where do you go?
Why do you think, as someone so young with these artists, why did they trust you at such a young age? Is it because nobody else was doing that shit for them?
Probably.
Okay.
And I think that you have to give people a reason to not trust you.
Yeah.
One of my biggest things that I've learned in the music business is establishing trust.
Yeah.
It's the biggest thing. I mean, you can't walk in and tell Katy Perry that that's not right, unless they trust you. If they trust you and you voice your opinion, then it's heard. So I think, I never gave anybody a reason not to trust me. I bent over backwards to help people because, these were guys that I wanted to be like, or that's what I wanted to do. I don't know. But I think at one point in high school, it was just very clear to me that Baton Rouge, I had to get out of Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
I had to expand. I had to grow. I had to learn. So the day I graduated high school, I moved to Los Angeles. I didn't know anybody. I had no family, no friends. I got an apartment from a Los Angeles Times newspaper that I ordered from a Baton Rouge newsstand and went out there sight unseen. Fortunately, I did enough homework where I got a great apartment in the area that I wanted to be in.
What was your rent? Do you remember?
It was back then. It was $450 a month.
That was super pricey for back then too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's amazing thinking about that. Right?
I think about my first apartment in Nashville. I was paying $425, and it's like a $2,500 apartment now. I'm like, there's no upgrades.
Before you move forward, I have an additional question about your growing up and being in high school and being in a scene like you were. How was that living the kind of life that you were living where you were gearing up to build your life and your career? How was that being a part of your peer group? Like sort of normal, your high school peers having a normal student experience, and here you are schmoozing with celebrities.
Yeah.
Did it set you apart, or did it just make you the cool guy? Were you untouchable, or were you like an ultra nerd?
Yeah, I still consider myself to be a total nerd. I mean, I didn't hang out with the cool people. I hung out with like the band nerds.
Yeah.
Because they fucking partied. And,
Did you as well?
Oh, yeah, man. It was high school.
Yeah.
Yeah, every
Were you
weekend.
doing lots of drugs?
No. Not then.
Yeah.
No, just, it was everything. I was in the marching band. So like,
would you play in the marching band?
I was in the drum section.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'd go to football games and everybody's just pounding Gatorade and vodka and like the band guys partied. And for me, I was never like the cool guy. I don't think. So I hung out with all the the cool nerds. Which I consider myself to be.
But you had friends in a peer group.
I still have a lot of my high school friends I'm still in touch with.
That's
I
neat.
see them when I go home. The interesting thing about your question is, which this didn't come until I guess a little bit later, was one of my friends said to me one time, he was like, I'm really jealous of you. And I was like, why would you be jealous of me? Like, I'm broke. I work 24 hours a day.
When did he say this? When you were in LA, or?
This was after LA. So I'll get back to LA, but it was probably when I moved to Nashville.
Okay, got it.
And I was back home in Baton Rouge for a weekend.
Yeah.
And I was like, why would you be jealous of me? He was like, well, I'm in my 5th year of college. He's like, I have no earthly idea what I want to do. I'll probably end up in insurance. And he's like, you've known your whole life that you were going to be in music. And I think that's the only thing that kind of answers your question was, yeah, I mean, I get that, you know?
You just knew and it sort of set you apart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's one of those things I've kind of tried to instill in my daughter even. It's like, you've got to find purpose. You've got to find passion. You got to find something that you absolutely love, and the money will come, you know, it will come. You're going to have to put the work in. You're going to have to learn everything about what it is that you're interested in and you want to go do. And for me, like I've been in the music business for 30 years, but I've been studying it my whole life, you know, reading everything that I could possibly read, learning how producers work, learning how managers work, how agents work. You know, I've done everything from push mail carts and at record labels to interning at studios. I mean, I've done every job you can do. Therefore, it's given me like a very broad knowledge of the business. And I think that it just goes back to that passion. You have to have passion, and you've got to find purpose. And if you do that, you know, you can just light yourself on fire.
Sitting where you are today, would you have done anything different?
No, nothing. It's funny, that question was asked to me in another podcast, and I had to think for a second, that was my answer. It was like, absolutely not. You know, I've had like a really crazy, epic life so far.
How old are you?
51.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a real sweet place to be, kind of, hopefully, knock on wood, halfway through your life and feeling really settled and grounded and grateful for where you are.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I don't like settle, you know, that doesn't resonate with me. Like, settling is what people do when they get into a routine.
I think I use the word settle,
You know what I mean?
as in like your soul feels at peace. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I think there's always something new and exciting.
you're not at peace.
No, man.
Say more.
I mean, I've just finished writing a book on the music industry. You know, like, there's always something to do to try, and now for me, it's like, how do I give back? You know, not only how do I stay in the game and can continue doing cool things that I love, but also how do you start giving back? How do you start mentoring? Mentors for me have been the greatest thing that I could possibly have ever asked for. And I've had really great mentors in my life. And I think that, you know, that's kind of what I'm looking at now, is like, not only continuing to play the game, but also how do you give back?
Who were your mentors?
Well, growing up, it was out of books, you know. Herman Jackson definitely was a mentor to me. There was a guy that I met in Los Angeles, California. His name was Tony Zetlin, and Tony became a real mentor for me. Tony was from London, and he moved over to Los Angeles when the Beatles went to Capitol, and he moved with the Beatles over and ran marketing at Capitol. And Tony retired. He lived on the top floor in my building, and we met at a party one night, and we hit it off. We just started talking music.
Yeah.
And Tony he'd call me every day. Hey, let's go hang out. Let's go, let's go to the Rainbow. Let's go see this band. Let's go do this. And we'd always end up at his apartment watching old VHS tapes of old bands, you know, like,
Cool.
like the history of the British invasion.
Yeah.
You know, and he would just break down and tell me stories, and then show me pictures, and, you know, tell me how, like, this artist moved from this band to that band, and how this happened, and how this manager put this band together, and it was just, you know, like one of these things where it gets your young brain like on overload. And I remember one night I was getting hyper excited about something that Tony was telling me, and I kept interrupting him. And he was like, I'm going to teach you your first lesson right now. And I was like, okay. And he was like, you need to shut the fuck up and you need to start listening. He's like, when you're in rooms with older people that have done what you want to do, you just need to be a sponge.
Yeah.
And you need to absorb everything. And I took that literally. And I don't think I talked, for like 2 years. I just was in rooms and I would just sit there and I'd listen and just absorb, And that Tony was a huge influence for me. And he was a cool guy. He wore shades, had his hair slicked back.
Another sunglass wearer.
Wore nice jackets. He always looked like a rock star. A couple of my mentors, Frank Liddell and Travis Hill, they're the guys that really brought me into the music business. And that happened here in Nashville. And that was at MCA Decca. I started in the mailroom there, and I was playing in a local band around town in Nashville. Mm-hmm. And Travis Hill came out and saw one of our gigs, and he liked the band. And then he started, bringing us into all these cool studios, like RCA Studio B, which is the legendary RCA Studio B, like Javelina Big Pig, Javelina Little Pig, RCA Studio A, the big room. He would take us into all these rooms, and then I'd always end up at the A&R department hanging out with Frank Liddell and Travis. And then I ended up starting to work up there with those guys. And they're the dudes that really they were like big brothers, Frank Liddell and I have a lot of the same like mindset from a producer standpoint. And I think he kind of instilled a lot of that stuff into me when I was younger. And those guys are like wicked successul, like massively successful. Frank is married to Leanne Womack. He owns a great publishing company. Travis Hill is a number one songwriter. And those guys, really kind of set a tone and a pace for me. And then a vibe, because both those guys are super cool. Frank Liddell, he'd always put his feet up on the desk, and he was always in cowboy boots, and he had his initials, on his boots. And
where were the initials? On the soles or on the sides?
No, it was like on the sides of the boots.
Okay.
And I was always thought, man, he's like probably one of the coolest guys.
You're wearing. I need the listeners to also know you are indeed wearing cowboy boots today.
I am.
They're beautiful boots.
Thank
Do you also always wear cowboy boots?
No. Yeah, when I go out.
Okay.
I like boots. But during that time with Frank and Travis, that decade of MCA Decca, you had Tony Brown running the label, Scott Borchetta running promotions, Mark Wright running Decca. You're talking about legends, like legendary people. So I got to be around a lot of that energy and really kind of soak up what was happening at that time.
What artists were they working with?
Oh man, it was. I don't even know who was on the label at that point. Yeah. The only thing that I really remember at that point were the Mavericks, because the Mavericks were like their umbrella record, whichever one that one is. I only remember this because that was one of the first albums that in the mailroom I had to package up and send out to people.
Yeah.
So I totally remember that. As far as the other artists on that, I don't remember at that time. But what I do remember were like the legends that were among us. I'd be in the mailroom and Tony Brown would walk in. He always drove in his Range Rover, and he'd come in. He was always in shades. He always looked like Tony Brown. He's just got a look. And, that kind of really set me on fire. It was around that time too when, being in Nashville, because after So I was in LA for 2 years, and I got into LA, and what I learned in Los Angeles was moving out there with no real game plan, which I had a game plan, which was to be in the music business.
Sure.
But to go out there with no real game plan of like, how am I going to do this?
Right.
Because LA is so big, you know, like you have labels in Santa Monica, Burbank, and Hollywood, and it's vast. It's hard to get to all these places. So for me, I just kind of found myself hanging out with musicians and actors, living in Los Angeles. Became really good friends with Johnny Depp. I got to watch him open the Viper Room. I got to spend time. Well, I was in the Viper Room every night for probably the first 2 years, and I don't like. I would never go back and say, well, back then I should have been interning or, you know, been at a studio or something like that, because what I saw, you know, in the Viper Room and who I got to see play and the people that I was around and had access to was mind-boggling. And I wouldn't replace that time for anything.
And you're learning things that can't be taught.
100%. And that's why I say I just can't replace that. I can't replace that school that Johnny Depp put me through. It was the night I was there the night River Phoenix died. And I saw it all happen. And that night I went home, and I think I made a conscious decision that it was the end of this era, and it was time for me to go somewhere where I could really focus. And I'd built a game plan, built a map of how I wanted to kind of approach breaking into the music business. And that's when I decided to move to Nashville. And I don't even remember, that was like 1995.
Okay.
That's when that was.
So you've been here a while.
Yeah. I was here from 95 to 2001. And then I moved back to Los Angeles. But Nashville has always been, when I moved to Nashville, this was really, in 95, it was really the first time I ever felt like I was home.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
like this is my home. And when I came here, I lived in Midtown, and I think I had a car at the time. I know I had a bicycle, but Music Row, 16th and 17th were like right here for me. Mm-hmm. So I would just walk in, and I would just like a fool, you know. It's my favorite tarot card, the Fool, because he's stepping off of a cliff, and it's like leap and the net will appear.
The net will appear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I live by that theory. So I would just go into studios. I'd go into record companies. I'd bring a resume. I would do this, and eventually I worked myself in, and started doing random things. Then ended up at MCA. Did a lot of random jobs. You know, mail outs at a record label here, temping at BMI, or just
being willing.
Yeah, totally. Wide open, you know, open to anything. And but the MCA time for me was pivotal. Because at that point, you know, I was playing in a band, was working with Travis Hill, in Nashville at that time, and in Nashville currently, there are so many great musicians everywhere. Back in 95 too, like you'd go to the Shell station and somebody would come out and they would pump your gas. Mm-hmm. You know, and I would just think to myself, like, the guy pumping my gas is like 10 times better than I'll ever be. And so around that time is when I made the conscious decision of like, I'm not a player. You know, what I'm really good at is managing and producing, making shit happen.
Yeah.
You know? And so that was kind of like a pivotal time. I remember going to Tony Brown one time, and we're like at a session at the RCA B, the big room. Mm-hmm. And I think it was a George Jones session. Mm-hmm. And I went up to Tony at the end, and I was like, "Hey, Tony, can I ask you a question?" He said, "Yeah, man, whatever." Yeah. And I was like, I want to do what you do. How do I do what you do? And he was like, well, what you got to do is you got to go out and you got to make things happen. You got to go find a band. You got to make that band happen. You got to make it your own. He's like, you can't do what I'm doing, but by doing what you're doing. Right. He was like, you got to get out there and you got to go make things happen on your own and make people come to you. And that was probably one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received.
So did you do it?
I did it.
So again, I want to reiterate, I don't know anything about you. I didn't Google you. So I don't know what you've done. So I want you to brag about it right now. Tell me who you found. Tell me who you've worked with. And
well, I can tell you this. After that moment of realizing he's right, you have to go out on your own, I went out and I started working with different bands in Nashville, putting them in studios, all while I'm like interning at night, interning during the day. You know, I ran errands for like a local newspaper, anything I could do to pay the bills, to be able to have freedom to do what I wanted to do.
Jason, what were you looking for in artists?
I think, you know, that's a really good question. For me, there just has to be, it's got to be a gut. Like, there's just got to be a gut thing of like, oh, I know what to do. I know how to help.
You can't even describe it. It's like a body feeling.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's gut. And it's one thing, you know, I've been doing meditation for a long time.
Ooh, I want to talk about that.
And I think through meditation, that's taught me to like totally trust my instincts and my gut, because your gut, like your gut reaction is like a direct connection to like the universe or God, whatever. And your gut's telling you something. It's when you do what you think as opposed to what your gut's telling you to do. That's when your ego comes in.
You're either shitting your guts out or you're constipated, and both are telling you something.
Correct. Yeah. So for me, it was always about a gut feeling.
Yeah.
So I started working with local bands, got a band signed, and did my first like major production for a band called Hugh out of Nashville. And then I decided to in 2001 that Nashville didn't have what I was looking for. You know, we didn't have. So
that brought you back.
We didn't have a rock scene. We didn't
Los
have.
Angeles.
We didn't have what I wanted to do, and so I decided to move back to Los Angeles. That being said, on my way to Los Angeles, I stopped to visit some friends in Denver, Colorado.
Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
What happened in Denver?
Well, I went out one night and I was at this coffee bar, and there was a guy playing the piano and a dude playing guitar, and it was Isaac Slade and Joe King from the Fray. And I ended up staying out in Colorado for 3 years. I worked with
a universe whoopsie.
Yeah. I worked with Rose Hill Drive out of Boulder, and then worked with the Fray. And I ended up going to LA to meet an A&R guy named Mike Flynn, and told him about the Fray, told him about Rose Hill Drive. Mike comes out, he sees the Fray gets signed. We sign Rose Hill Drive, and then my tenure in Colorado is up. So I moved back to Los Angeles, and I had a band that I'd been working with for a while. This kid named Matt Bell. I've known him since he was, I think, probably like 16.
Oh, wow.
Matt was always a great songwriter. He was in a band called Silent Friction. It was a band that I was working with here in Nashville. And he started a new band called the Pink Spiders. And so I was working with the Pink Spiders. And by the time I got back to LA, like 6 weeks of being in Los Angeles, I brought the Pink Spiders out to LA to do a showcase at the Viper Room. And that went into all the record companies were there. That went into a bi-coastal bidding war, which is something that is interesting to me because you read about it. I've read about it. You understand what a bicoastal bidding war is.
Well, tell the people what a bicoastal bidding war is.
It's when you have record companies from the East Coast and the West Coast bidding on a band. They want them. So you have the East Coast and the West Coast battling.
Sitting in the middle of this, are you just like, this is the best thing ever?
It's the coolest thing in the world. One of them. Because it's one of those things that you read about in books, and very few people get to experience something like that. So that bidding war caused a ruckus, and we ended up signing the band to Geffen Records with a massive record deal. It was one of the biggest in history for a young band, for a new band. And that kind of led me into doing a lot of different things. I produced a band from my hometown, brought them out to LA, we signed them to Universal. I did some stuff with Pharrell, Justin Timberlake. It's just the doors start opening.
Yeah.
I think that when you do things like what Tony Brown said, you got to make people come to you. And the only way people come to you is when you've got something that they want. So you have to go out there and you have to create something that they want for them to come to you. And then when they come to you, you really hold the cards. Yeah. And so that's kind of like the philosophy that I took, especially like after the Pink Spider days. But the doors really kind of started opening for me around 2005. And I got to just work on really interesting projects with just about everybody that I've ever wanted to work with.
In part 2 of our sit down with Hollis, he talks more about his career trajectory, being an owner of a Nashville music venue with a rich history, and passing his knowledge down to the younger generation of music industry folks. Subscribe now so you don't miss it. Our show is executive produced by Sherry Day, Farley Day, and John Arnold. Produced, edited, and engineered by Jonathan Kosick. Additional camera work by Andrew Herner. Designed by Josh Ford. If you live in the Nashville area or are visiting soon and want to be a guest, email us at jonathan@freshconsumables.com. That's JONATHAN@freshconsumables.com. Want to hear more of Surprisingly's meaningful and unpredictable conversations? Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Bridget Deanahan. Thanks for listening.